Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his rival Benny Gantz are in Washington to hold what is being seen as a historic level of historic talks with President Donald Trump. The much-anticipated plan to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is expected to be announced. Confident of his close ties with Donald Trump, Netanyahu believes this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that Israel should not miss out on. Trump's West Asia peace plan is expected to be extremely favorable to Israel. The talks are scheduled to be held on Tuesday. Let's listen in to what Netanyahu said shortly before leaving for the United States.
אנחנו בעיצומם של אירועים מדיניים מאוד דרמטיים, אבל השיא עוד לפנינו. בעוד זמן קצר יצא לוושינגטון. יפגש מחר עם ידידי נשיא ארצות הברית דונלד טראמפ, שיציג את תוכנית המאה שלו. אני חושב שפעם אחת בהיסטוריה יש הזדמנות כזאת, ואסור לנו להחמיץ אותה. במשך 3 שנים אני משוחח עם הנשיא טראמפ ועם צוותו על הצרכים הביטחוניים והלאומיים שלנו. עשרות רבות של שיחות, מאות שעות. אני מצאתי בכל השיחות הללו אוזן קשבת בבית הלבן לצרכים החיוניים של מדינת ישראל. אני יוצא לוושינגטון בתחושת שליחות גדולה, אחריות גדולה והזדמנות גדולה. ואני מלא תקווה שנוכל לעשות היסטוריה.
Netanyahu's rival, Benny Gantz, is also in Washington, who will be meeting Donald Trump today. He has already turned down a joint appearance with Netanyahu at the White House, fearing that the Prime Minister would use this as an opportunity to try and upstage himself. After the meeting, Gantz is expected to return to Israel with his plans in Parliament to block a request by Netanyahu calling for immunity from prosecution.
It's a very important visit. I'm looking forward. Plan of the deal is to deal with Israel's security, the regional strategies, stabilization hopefully down the road, and I'm looking forward.
What do you hope to achieve from the meeting?
Good relations and explanation and understanding between the President and myself.
Will this meeting help or hinder you in the elections in March, do you think?
We came for the meeting, we'll take care of the election.
And although the Palestinians have dismissed the plan without even seeing it, it is not the first time that peace efforts have been failing to overcome decades of distrust and violence. The first step was taken in 1967, shortly after the Middle East War, when Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights area. The UN Security Council called for the withdrawal of the Israeli armed forces, but nothing happened. 5 years later, US President Jimmy Carter brought Israel and Egypt together at Camp David to negotiate the peace process, and a framework was agreed upon calling for withdrawal of the Israeli troops in stages from Egypt's Sinai Desert. In 1979, the first peace treaty between the two sides detailing the complete withdrawal of Israeli soldiers from Sinai was looked at within a period of 3 years. In 1981, the Saudi Crown Prince proposed a complete withdrawal from all occupied territories and the creation of a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital, and a right of return or compensation for Palestinian refugees. In 1991, 4 years after the Palestinian uprising, an international peace conference was called for in Madrid. It was attended by members of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, but no agreement was arrived at. Between 1993 and 1995, Israel and the PLO held secret talks in Norway that resulted in the interim peace accords calling for establishment of a Palestinian interim self-government and an elected council in the West Bank and Gaza for a 5-year transitional period. Another US-led initiative was taken in the year 2000 when President Bill Clinton convened a meeting between Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat and the Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak at Camp David. They failed to reach an agreement, and another Palestinian uprising followed soon after. Between the years 2002 and 2003, President George W. Bush became the first U.S. president to call for the creation of a Palestinian state living side by side with Israel in peace and security. The plan was endorsed by several countries, presenting a roadmap to a permanent two-state solution to that conflict. In the year 2007, Bush held a Middle East summit in Annapolis. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert agreed to resume talks, but a corruption investigation and a Gaza war in 2008 prevented the agreement from materializing. Another important moment came in the year 2009 when Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he would be open to a peace agreement that includes the establishment of demilitarized Palestinian state. He also called on Palestine to recognize Israel as the state of the Jewish people. The very next year, 2010, amid pressure from the United States, Netanyahu imposed a 10-month moratorium on West Bank settlement construction. Peace talks resumed just before the freeze ended and then broke down after Netanyahu refused to extend that moratorium. Between 2013 and 2014, both sides refused to resume the peace talks, even as pressure from the United States continued. In June last year, the Trump administration took an economy-first approach, calling for a $50 billion investment fund to boost the Palestinian and neighboring Arab state economies. The same year, Netanyahu threatened to annex West Bank settlements and much of the Jordan Valley during his electoral rallies. Later, the U.S. effectively backed Israel's claim on the right to build Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank by abandoning the 4-decade-old American position that they were inconsistent with international law.